Hey guys, today is Friday, February 14th, and I want to talk about something a little bit different today. Now, this is, I believe it's day 22 of our monetization challenge. Okay, so because it is Valentine's Day, I want to take this opportunity to talk about relationships. And I want to tell you that whether you are single or happily married or somewhere in between, I still think what I'm going to share today will apply to you in some ways. So please do stick around and hear me out, at least for a moment, so I can tell you where I'm going with this, okay? So I not only want to talk about God's plan for relationships, but I also want to share a little bit of my backstory so that you get a feel for what God has done in mine and Art's lives. Basically, I'm going to share a bit of my testimony. And even if you are anti relationship completely, I still think I've got something for you today. I think what I'm going to share, if it doesn't relate to you, I think it could relate to someone you know, or maybe your own children, or how you parent your children, or somebody else's children that are in your life, that is in your life. Sorry guys, I'm having some tripod issues today. It keeps trying to fall over for some reason. So anyway, before we get into all of that, I do want to take a moment to say thank you to everybody that is here, especially my regular subscribers. I just want to thank you all just for being here. Um, I love you guys for allowing me to share more of my heart and share my my personality, I guess, my share more personal things that I don't share on the DIY channel. I really am enjoying that. It's very freeing. It's almost like a journal that I'm sharing with the world, I guess. Anyway, I just want to thank you guys for allowing me to share in this way and actually commenting on the videos and encouraging me and everything. I really do appreciate that. So in honor of Valentine's Day, I love you all. So thank you for being here. And if you are new here, my name is Shayla, and me and my fiance Art have a home and garden DIY channel. It's Second Mile DIY. You can check that out if you want to. But anyway, that's not what we're on this channel for. So today, I want to talk about relationships, but I would really like to talk about spiritual relationships. And, take what you want from this. If you are not in a relationship and maybe you don't want to be in a relationship, then um, think of your relationship with the Lord, with our Creator, our Heavenly Father, right? So anyway, what I want to share goes all the way back to, well, actually, it goes even further than that. So, me and my fiance Art, we got engaged in 2022, and we do believe the Lord is writing a beautiful story through our lives. And so, that's why I want to share a little bit of my story here today, and maybe someday we'll have Art share some of his story. And we will most likely be able to get married this year now that we have purchased our homestead property. But you can go check out the other channel for more information on that. Okay, so all I ever really wanted in my adult life, especially, but all I ever really wanted was a happy marriage. Even before I became an adult, I mean, my parents are still together, and I just believe in marriage. I believe in the unity of marriage and having a partner that supports you and everything. My parents are a great couple together. They are so good together. So anyway, I grew up with that, and I've always believed in that. And so that's what I've always wanted. And I accepted Jesus into my heart when I was 14 years old. I was not raised in the church. Me and my sisters, our exposure to church was with family members and with some of our friends. So as I became a teenager, I attended church with various different friends. And so anyway, like I said, I accepted Jesus into my heart when I was 14, but I didn't really start pursuing a relationship with him until I was 18. That was shortly after I had given birth to my first son, and I prayed for wisdom. And I asked God, to lead me. We found a church that we started attending and everything, and I started diving into pursuing Jesus and learning about what a relationship with him was really like. And for the most part, since the age of 18, I have lived fully and completely for the Lord. Of course, I've had my stumbling blocks and, moments where I went off track like we all do, right? But probably for the past 20 years at least, I've been fully committed and not really stumbled, not that I'm perfect, obviously, but walked pretty closely with the Lord for at least 20 years now. Okay, so I don't want to go like too deep into every single thing right now, but where I do want to go with this is in 2012. Well, it really started in 2011. My marriage was falling apart, and my husband at the time was not coming home half the time. And there's a whole story behind that. We did divorce at the beginning of 2012, or the divorce was finalized at the beginning of 2012. We really split up in 2011. I was heartbroken. I was devastated. This is not what I wanted. I had always fought for marriage. I absolutely didn't want that. I didn't want my first divorce either. But one thing I can say is I thank God that He had a different plan. Okay, if you are struggling in this, in this world, and especially around Valentine's Day, I know it can get lonely if you don't have a Valentine or if you're in a bad relationship. And I just want to say that God's plan is always the best plan. And had I known what He had in store, I would have been a little more patient. But I thank God all the time that it wasn't my choice to end those marriages, that was forced upon me, I should say. I thank God that it was forced upon me, because had it not been, I would have never experienced the love that I have with Art, the love that he pours out on me. I have never experienced that ever in my life. He is the most amazing man I've ever met in my life. And I'm going to try to say all this stuff without getting emotional, but um, his, and we've been together for almost 4 years now, but just the way that he loves me is such a reflection of God's love for us, is how I feel. And I pray that everybody out there, whether you've got a relationship or not, that you would feel that as well. That and for those of you that are in a relationship, I've got a lot I want to say to all the single people out there. But if you are in a relationship, if you don't have this from your spouse, try being this for your spouse. You'll be surprised at what a difference it can make. The love that Art pours over me, and just the selflessness. This is just the type of person that he is, not just with me, but with everybody, with his children. It doesn't matter. He's just the most selfless person I've ever met in my life. And other than Jesus, it feels amazing to be loved like this, loved in this way, which I know this is how my Heavenly Father loves me as well, and loves you. And so that's why I hope that everybody that might see this video has the opportunity to be loved like this. I know you have the opportunity to be loved like this by Jesus, but I hope you get the opportunity to be loved like this by someone in your life as well. But like I said, if not, try being that person for someone. Okay. But let me jump away from this, because I could talk about this all day long. Okay, so after the divorce, I was really struggling emotionally. It was it was so hard on me. And all I could do was just pour myself into the Bible, pour myself into my relationship with God. I was at church every chance that I got. What I actually started doing back then, and I do recommend this if you are someone that is single and you're trying to live a Christian life. Well, I'll get into that another time. But anyway, back then, though, what really helped me to get back on my feet emotionally, I started going to church all weekend. There was one church here in the Tulsa area. There's a church called Church on the Move, and they had Friday night services. So I started going on Friday nights with one of my best friends, and so we would go there on Friday nights, and then on Saturday afternoon or Saturday evenings, Life Church, which is where I go now, had Saturday services at the time. And so I was doing Life Church on Saturday. And then my church was Rejoice Church here in Owasso. And I was still going there on Sundays and on Wednesdays. And then once a month on Fridays, I worked in the children's ministry thing. So anyway, me and my boys, because at that time in 2012, let me see, Braden was 12, 12 or 13 years old. RJ was in high school. Braden was 12 or 13. Aiden and Elijah, though, they were young. They were like 5 and 7 or 6 and 8, like right around there. So anyway, so I was really pouring myself into the Bible, and just I called those on the weekends. I called those my date nights with Jesus. And it just made me feel better. It made me feel like I wasn't so alone, especially if you've ever been through a breakup. You know, everybody needs time to heal. And let me tell you something that I have noticed is that the people that don't give themselves that time to heal after a big breakup, they are the ones that wind up having another broken relationship afterward. I've seen that many, many, many times. And, my ex at that time, he was already out dating. Lots of other people kept coming and telling me that he was dating this person and that person and everything. And I just, that was painful too, to know that he was just out there dating like our marriage meant nothing or something, So, but I knew I was not ready to date. And so I kept myself single for 2 full years before I decided to start dating again. And then even then, once I did start dating, it was like I would like dip my toe in the water, and then I'd be like, nope, nope, nope. It's scary out there. I'm not ready. I don't want to do this. And so I'd kind of run back into my ideals. So even though God wound up keeping me single for 10 years before Art came into my life, 10 years, okay? If you are single, I just want to encourage you and say, don't date for the sake of dating. It's not, you just put yourself through too much. And definitely, if you've just gone through a breakup recently, give yourself time to heal. That is so important. You need time where you are not thinking about the opposite sex and you're not trying to rush out there. You need to heal and uh, get rid of your baggage and stuff. There's a lot of emotional baggage that happens after divorce. So just keep that in mind. Also, during that time, I was um, like scouring YouTube back then for relationship advice and relationship sermons and things that um, helped me to focus more on making myself a better person. And I think that is so important, that you can't change other people, you can't focus on other people. So what you need to do is focus on making yourself the version of person that you would want to be with, right? So like I dove into my career, I focused on my children and like dove headfirst into my career and into my relationship with God and just growing that. and making sure that my boys were being raised with the right values and morals and everything. But since I was also doing a lot of biblical study of relationships and everything, I feel like I became a scholar of relationships. You know what I mean? Just like learning more about myself and my own behaviors, and then others' behaviors and red flags to look for too, because I was very guilty of being a martyr for my marriages and uh, feeling like it was my job to be a doormat, basically. And I let people walk all over me. And it took me years before I realized that I was not putting enough value on myself for my husbands to put value on me. So they didn't value me because I didn't value me. I was bowing down and letting them do whatever they wanted. And it was just, I was like scurrying around trying to make everything perfect for everybody. And that made me very unvaluable to them, I guess. Okay, so another thing that I did back then that I really, really do encourage this for you guys. Anytime I felt lonely, I got a little notebook and I started writing letters to my future spouse. And just anytime I was lonely, I would date it and I would write a letter and say, I know you're out there somewhere. I know, oh, I forgot to tell you the most important part. I'll go back to that in a second. Okay. So anyway, I would say, I know you're out there somewhere and we're going to meet someday. And, just random stuff about how I love them already, even though I haven't met them. I know that they're out there and I can't wait to meet them, things like that. So I did finally give that to Art in 2022, which is the year we got engaged. So, um, anyway, I can tell you more about that another time. But let me go back to the promise God gave me in 2012. So, back when I was going to 3 different church services every weekend, um, I heard a sermon in January of 2012. It was actually Willie George that at Church on the Move that did this sermon, and it made me realize so much that I didn't understand before. And I had I had somehow picked up the belief that like waiting for marriage was not a thing that people did anymore. And so through this sermon, I can't remember the entire sermon, but it made me realize that I had not had biblical marriages. And I mean, they didn't start out biblically. And that how can you ask God to bless a relationship when you didn't invite him into it until after it became a marriage, right? Even though I thought I was inviting him into it. But what I didn't realize at the time was that you don't invite God into your relationship. You need to wait and let God orchestrate that relationship. So that was what I started learning in 2012 and started realizing I've done relationships all wrong. And I'm not doing this again. I'm not making this mistake. I'm not going through another divorce ever again. And I'm not going to be cheated on ever again. I am not allowing this in my life anymore. And so I prayed one night in January of 2012 and asked God, and I felt there's like been like 3 or 4 times in my life where I felt God like truly, truly speak like almost prophecy into me and tell me, not audibly, it was not an audible voice, but I felt the Holy Spirit confirm something in me, right? But but I received a promise that there was a future husband out there for me, and that I was going to have to be patient because he was going through some things. And I wrote this in my future husband journal, even that I knew uh, the Holy Spirit had told me that he was going through some things. I wrote this in 2015. I know you're going through some things and that we can't meet yet, but when we do, I promise to be the best partner for you that I can be. Like, things like that I wrote in there. So And I don't know if you guys know, I've mentioned this before, but Art became a widow in 2018. And if we talk any more about that, I'll let him talk about that. But his wife was ill for some time. So anyway, um, so back to the promise God gave me in 2012. So I did receive that word that there was someone for me. I was going to have to be patient. He was going through some things. And so I promised God that I would be patient, and I asked him to close all doors that did not lead to the man that he had for me. And for that next 10 years, here's the crazy thing, that it took me until like 2018 before I started realizing it. And I thought, wait, that he's doing this because I asked him to. But I didn't start dating again until 2014, and then I got kind of scared away again, and then I think I dated again in 2017, and then anyway, um, oh, every time I would get into, like, I guess you could kind of say relationship, it would never last more than 6 weeks. And I'm sorry, it was 2020 that I finally figured this out. But in 2020, I started thinking, like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I make, because at this point, I'm coming up on, it's almost been 10 years, right? And I start thinking, why can I not keep anyone around longer than 6 weeks? And then that prayer popped back into my mind, and the Holy Spirit reminded me, because it's what you asked for. You said for us to close the door on anything that was not from God. And that's what he did. He closed the door on everything that was not from him. And so then there were so many things in my prayer journal that I had written down, that over the years I felt the Lord telling me just different things about what to expect from my future spouse, right? And in the first week of me and Art talking with each other, he was saying all of these things that I had written down. He couldn't have possibly known all of these things. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is what it's like. One of my favorite little quotes that you see on Facebook or whatever a lot is to run as fast as you can toward Jesus. And if somebody keeps up, introduce yourself, or run as fast as you can to the Lord, and or find a man that's so focused on Jesus that he only looks up because he hears God say, there she is. Like that. That was exactly how our relationship felt to both of us, to me and Art, as things started evolving and everything. So we'll share more about it if you guys want, ever sometime in the future. But okay, so one more thing. I did tell you guys that I had something for married couples as well. So I just want to encourage you, if you are married and maybe you're just in the day-to-day grind and you kind of have lost that spark or something, or maybe even you're in a rough patch, a real rough patch. I just want to encourage you and tell you that one thing that Art and I have done since the beginning of our relationship, and I highly, highly recommend it. We are constantly, I bought these at the Dollar Tree, just tons of different note cards. Just some are blank. I mean, not blank, but don't say anything on the front, and then some say thank you or thanks or whatever. In the beginning, we would leave each other multiple notes to find throughout the week. I used to, his shirts, like because he would do his laundry here, so his shirt pockets, like when he has a front shirt pocket, sometimes I'll stick notes in there, and then that way, when he goes to put on that shirt next time, he'll find the note. And then we always date them as well. Art is really good about dating them, and so then I got better about dating them too, so that I would always know when we wrote those. And then he gave me a little wooden box one year to keep all of my notes in. And what I was going to say is, one of the ones I stuck in his shirt, it was right as the seasons were changing, I guess. So I wrote it in like 2022, and it was a long sleeve shirt. And so I guess he didn't ever wear that shirt again until the next year, because I guess was getting to the point where it was almost too hot for long sleeve or something. So anyway, he didn't find that note and for a year later. So anyway, it's just something fun. Uh, I'm always trying to figure out a way that I could like sneak cards into his vehicle, but he never leaves his vehicle unlocked and he never leaves his keys where I can find them when he's over here. But he's left me sticky notes and note cards and stuff on my computer or on my nightstand or in different areas, and it's just so sweet and I love it. And that even for you guys that don't care about those types of things, well, first of all, let me say that if you aren't familiar with the five love languages, I really think you should read that book. I will link it below just in case. There's a website too, so I'll include that link. But you can take the five love languages quiz for free. And I am a words of affirmation girl. I always have been, and it's something that has always been lacking in my life. But thank goodness for Art. He is so good at filling up my words of affirmation bucket. Like, he is so good about that. And it was funny because when we first started dating, we both took the quiz again together to see how it turned out. And he's also a words of affirmation person. Both of us, our two highest are words of affirmation and physical touch, and our lowest is gifts for both of us. So that was kind of funny. I think our third and fourth were flip flopped, um, they were. I can't even remember what they are now. Acts of service, and I can't remember the other one now. Anyway, apparently it's that important to me. So anyway, so I want to say that, and then we also have. I got us a 3-year couples journal in 2022, and it's really cool because and we're really behind on it because it's like a daily one, and it has a prompt for every day. So um, in the beginning, we would, like, since we don't live together yet, we would go, like, he would take it for a week and he'd fill out for that week. And then the next week he'd bring it back to me. So I would like try to catch up on that week and do the following or do that week that we were on, and we'd pass it back and forth. Well, that gets hard when you have to sit down and fill out 14 days worth of journal prompts in one sitting. It's overwhelming kind of. So I think we'll do better with that once we're actually married and living in the same location, and then we can write down our stuff daily and not feel overwhelmed with it. But anyway, it is fun, and it's neat to go back and see what we wrote to each other back in 2022 and 2023. And then once we're actually married, we can fill out the rest of the journal prompts as the year goes on. But it's just cool because as you're filling out that day, because under each question, it has 3 blanks for the female and 3 blanks for the male, so that you can put in it, and the year is blank too, so you just write in the year yourself. So as you're answering it, so like say for 2025, as you're answering it for 2025, you can see what you and he or you and them both wrote for the previous 2 years. So anyway, it's fun. I'll link that as well because I got it on Amazon, and I bought one of my sons a different one, and got my sister a different one than that one year. So I'll link all 3 of those because they're all really good, and really good about building your connection with your relationship. That reminds me of one more thing. My nephew, I'm going to look back and see if I have it. I hope I do. But my nephew, a couple of years ago, went through a really bad breakup with his first love. And my heart just broke for him because I know he was 18. I know what that's like when just being so young and feeling like uh, just not realizing that you've still got your whole life ahead of you and there's a whole lot more of fish in the sea, right? So anyway, at the time I had thought about writing a blog post for our website, for our Second Mile Journey website. So I was going to write that just to address like some feelings that I had about the whole situation. And I typed it up in a note. So I'm going to look and see if I still have that. But I want to share that with you guys as well if I've still got it. So I actually found it. It was written on November 20th, 2023 at 11:50 p.m. I am going to go make this a post on the website as well. Okay, young love and heartbreak. Things to remember during a breakup. First, First, heartbreak is almost always inevitable. At some point in your life, someone is going to break your heart. I know that sounds harsh, and it is, but it's true. I don't know very many people over the age of 30 that haven't had their heart broken before, and it sucks. It really, truly does. At first, all you are thinking about is what you did wrong and how you might have hurt the other person, and you miss them because they had become such a big part of your life. I have had way more than my fair share of this, and one thing that took me way too long to learn is that it wasn't all my fault. It does take two. The biggest problem is communication, as well as a lot of people not being truthful about who they are and what they want in life. And then you find that out after you are so far in, you don't want the time you've invested in the relationship to be a waste. So you keep on trying. More about that part in a minute. There are a few things you need to understand about a breakup. And please use this time to process your feelings and learn what you could have done differently. And also think about what the other party might have been doing that caused you to do or not do whatever causes all of this. Like I said, 99% of the time it boils down to communication. Someone didn't clearly define their expectations in the relationship. That's why when you are dating, you should spend those early months truly getting to know one another, but also being very clear about who you are and what you want out of life, and being very clear about what your expectations would be if you were to become serious about this person. There is no shame in asking these things up front. It doesn't mean you are professing love for this person after 2 dates. It simply means you are being intentional with your dating choices and you don't want to waste time with the wrong person. Trust me, if someone is scared off by you asking those questions, they weren't meant for you anyway. But I'm getting off track. Back to breakups and healing your heart. There is a possibility that your breakup is a temporary thing and that the two of you are meant for one another. Sometimes these breakups happen so that it forces us to dig deep into ourselves and see our own flaws and learn how to communicate better. But before you make that decision, I want you to know a few things. These are things that I heard after each heartbreak in my life, but I never fully understood all of it until I finally met the man God was saving me for. God kept me single for an entire decade so that I could learn these valuable lessons, and I pray whoever is reading this will take this to heart. Number one, if it's meant to be, it will be. Don't force it. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't apologize if there's something you think you did wrong, or at least something you should have done better. If you apologize and let them know how much you want this to work, but they aren't interested in trying again, it's best to let it go. There's probably a very good reason God is closing this door. Too many times I would get lonely and think, well, they weren't perfect, but no one is, and they had real potential. They were a pretty decent person, etc. And I would talk myself into fighting for something I had no business being a part of because we were completely wrong for one another. Here's what I want you to do. First, take time to really evaluate who you are. Not who you are willing to be, but who you are. I remember thinking subconsciously when I was younger how I could be a variety of different people, and when I found the right person, I'd be happy to adapt to what kind of life they wanted. That is such wrong thinking. Number two, you are valuable. All on your own, you are valuable. You were made in God's image, and He knew you before you were born. Not only that, but He sent His Son to die for you because He loves you that much, and He wants a relationship with you. So I would say that makes you pretty dang valuable. Even if you don't believe any of that stuff, more on that later too. It took me a long time to realize there are some fundamental areas in life where you and your potential partner must agree. I know in the beginning you both have butterflies and you really like them a lot so far, but you are in for major heartache if you don't pay attention to these areas. I'm speaking from a lot of experience on this, and I'm telling you, it is extremely important to pay attention to these key areas. It can be hard in the beginning because you are so enamored with one another, but trust me, once you get comfortable around each other and the walls come down, if you aren't aligned in these areas, they are going to cause conflict unless you've discussed them. So pay attention. First, religion. What are your beliefs? And if you aren't sure, you need to at least look at your upbringing and the other person's upbringing. If you both aren't sure what you believe, but you were raised by families of two very different faiths, you should be very cautious if you proceed. And you should definitely have this discussion with one another because of item number 6. Number 2, politics. Even if neither of you pay any attention to politics right now, it's all around us. So you do have some deep-seated beliefs, even if you don't realize it yet. My suggestion is that you look at the environment you were raised in. What was the political landscape in your home? You need to be learning this about a potential partner very early on. If you are young right now and haven't really decided where you stand, I urge you to take a look at some of the hot button topics. Make sure you and your partner are aligned in those beliefs. I did not do that before getting married. I just assumed my future husband was in agreement with me when he told me he was a registered Republican. So imagine my surprise when a few years into our marriage, I suddenly found out that he was not against abortion and several other things that made me think, how can you call yourself a Republican or even a Christian? And as I began learning new things about my spouse, I started losing respect for the man I thought I knew because he turned out he wasn't at all the man I thought I knew. So please save yourself the future heartache by making sure your beliefs are fairly similar, or at least make sure you both agree that you really don't care about it at all. And keep in mind, there is a good chance that one or both of you will develop your own beliefs over time. That's why it's important to evaluate how you were raised. If you were raised in households with parents that had similar political views, you probably have a better chance than two people coming from completely different backgrounds. Okay, number 3 is money. You definitely have to be aligned on finances too. If you want to make a lot of money and you want to have the security of a large bank account, you need to make sure the other person respects that. And I mean, you need to really stress to them that while money isn't everything, you are a person that needs or wants the security it brings. If the other person is a major spender, you seriously need to talk about how that will work if you have a future together. That's not to say that a spender and a saver can't be happy together. That's definitely not the case because there's typically one of each in most relationships. But if you are a saver, you need to really think about if you are going to be okay if your partner spends hundreds of dollars each week on things that feel like frivolous spending to you. And if that's not okay, then you need to discuss that early on because who knows? If you voice this up front, maybe they'll realize they cause you undue stress by spending too much money. And if they love you enough, they will probably adjust their spending habits because they don't want to cause you stress. It's truly another one of those communication things. And on the flip side, if you are the spender and you know you are always going to be spending lots of money on expensive coffee drinks or fancy clothes or whatever, you need to pay attention to your partner's habits and see if that sits well with them. If they seem to be a bigger saver than you, I strongly urge you to ask them if they would have issues with that in the future. One of my exes was pretty upfront with me in the early stages of dating. He told me he spends a lot of money on bikes and gear and stuff. He asked if that was going to be an issue for me. And I told him, of course not. He had his own money to spend on that kind of stuff. So it didn't bother me what his extra money was spent on as long as we had taken care of the bills first. That was an example of good communication on our part. Okay, number 4 is work ethic. You need to talk about what career goals, aspirations you have, and what expectations you both have of your future spouse. There are so many ways this could go. I know some men that want to be the breadwinner and don't care either way if the wife stays home or works. There are other men that would say 100% they expect their wife to be working full time. And I know some men out there that prefer their wife to stay home because they want their kids raised by a parent and not a daycare. So it's very important to have these discussions as well. Some women want to stay home and raise the kids. Other women say they could never stay home full time. And nowadays, we're even seeing role reversal where the dad is staying home with the kids and the mom is the full time breadwinner. There is no right or wrong way in this. It's just important that you are on the same page. Number 5, kids. I already touched on it, but it is important not only to know if you both want kids, but how do you plan to raise them? I learned this one the hard way. I got married and had my first 2 boys at a young age. Before the age of 21, I was married with 2 kids. I'm not sure either of us could have predicted the type of parent we wanted to be at such a young age, but I wish we would have tried. If we had tried to articulate this one area early on, we could have saved each other and our boys a lot of heartache. Now, don't get me wrong, I say this in hindsight, but I am more than grateful and blessed by my boys. I wouldn't go back and change anything because then I wouldn't have them. Plus, it taught me valuable lessons that I can now share with you. So, as always, God turned it for good. But we were foolish to not discover these things about each other before starting a family. And like I said, a lot of heartache took place because of it. So if I can save someone else from making the same mistake, then it was all worth it. Oh, okay, so number 6 is social life, 7 is family, and 8 is lifestyle goals. And apparently I never finished writing that. Okay, so it's funny. So then, but I did write a whole lot more. So let's read the rest of this. Okay. One thing I've learned is that there is treasure in the dark places. Oh boy, I used to always say that to myself. I always did my deepest growing during the most painful times of my life. Times when I felt like the entire world had turned their backs on me and all I had was Jesus. He got me through every single moment, every single hard time. I learned to listen to his voice. I learned to rest in his loving arms and realize how valuable I am. Now I know someone out there is thinking I'm being too picky, but trust me, I'm not saying you have to be perfectly aligned in all these areas. In fact, I seriously doubt you're going to find someone who is exactly like you in all those areas. I'm just saying you need to discuss them in advance, way before your heart is fully invested. You need to make sure there's nothing that one of you is firmly set on while the other person strongly opposes it. That's all I'm saying. You will save yourself so much heartache if you evaluate all these areas before giving your heart away to someone. But one more time, I'm losing my voice. Let me stress that you shouldn't shut the door on every single person just because they don't align with each of these core values. I just want you to talk to them about it and see if it's an area that maybe you'd both be willing to come to a compromise. If you talk about it in advance, you probably will be able to come up with a compromise that makes both of you feel valued and heard and respected. It's when you don't talk about it that things get out of hand. I, there's this one little gnat that is flying around in front of my light, and I'm trying to get it before it goes and lays eggs on my plants. So, anyway, sorry. Maybe I'll put that as an outtake at the end. If you see me lunch, then just know I'm trying to kill some gnats over here. Okay, so anyway, okay, what was I saying? I lost my, I don't know where I interrupted myself. Okay, um, And I feel like my camera is off balance and this tripod keeps trying to tip over. Stay. This camera is just at a funky angle for some reason. I may need to switch tripods. Oh, well, that's real funky. Let's turn this. Please don't fall over. Okay. There's that gnat. Darn it. I missed. It's a bad thing when I have my rings on. It seems like that's when I'm trying to hit a gnat and then I scratch my ring up, or I worry about scratching my ring up, and then that's when I miss the gnat. Anyway, enough about that. Where was I going? Yes. Okay. So, yeah, what didn't go so well? Okay. So, anyway, I'm losing track of where I was going with that.